So the inspiration for these, I don't normally watch a lot of YouTube, but and this was complicated enough. I watched quite a few YouTube videos from folks. Gabriel Castro, his YouTube channel is Exotic Wood Pins, and man, does he have some crazy pins. And he did some pins that were a little bit like the ones that we're doing. Bob Blanford, for those that were with us when we did the video for the first SWAT, Bob had a demo in our room, and he did a pin that's a little bit like this in one of his videos. He seems to be not doing as much pins these days, but if you look at his older videos, you can still find some that are like that. The one that's most like what I'm going to talk about tonight is Lynn Lacey, and he's got a nice review of how to make the scallop. And Bob Austin, Gwinnett Woodworks apparently is like a school, and Rob Austin is one of the instructors, I guess. And I have him up there. He had a real nice review of Celtic pins. So these are two that I've made, and we're going to show you how you can do this and do it reproducibly and get it to come out. And I've been making a lot of blanks, and the one that James has, I've been making double-ended pins with the feature on each end of the pin, and they just got too long for that jig. Some of these were made on Debbie's little bandsaw, and some of them were made on the big one. You can also make a single-ended pin, and here's another double-ended pin. You can do a lot with these. You can cut them in half and use them in one of the pin kits that has a short wood component. I suppose you could even mix and match the ends. So you have a blue one and a red one if you wanted, but I probably wouldn't do that. And then this is one that I finished today, and I got that prepped to maybe do a little turning on it later. I got the making of these things down. I was able to knock out a double-ended pin in an hour. The first one took 4 hours, and as you repeat, they get better. I talked about it looks best on the larger diameter pins. I think my opinion. Choose an interesting blank, wood blank, 3/4 inch cross section, and I've been doing things that were a little bit longer than a normal pin because I didn't know how things were going to come out, and I wanted lots of room to chop it off and start over if I needed to. But it needs to be at least as long as the tube that you're going to use, and a little bit more. The wood that I'm using is Bolivian rosewood for all of them except this one, and I have no idea what this one is. It might be a canary wood. And then you need some accent pieces, and I like yellow heart and purple heart as a combination. So the accent pieces, the thickness, I've been using sort of 3/8 of an inch as a thickness. It needs to be as wide as the blank, so 3/4 of an inch wide. And when you do the first cut at 45 degrees, that this needs to lay on the blank on that cut segment, and it turns out to be about 1¼ inches for a 45-degree pin. I like Purple Heart and Yellow Heart. I like Yellow Heart and Padauk. I like, that's actually not a real pretty piece of walnut and maple. And you're going to need 2 of these, 2 of each color for each end. So you need 2 yellow hearts and 2 purple hearts for the left end, and 2 for the right end if you're going to do that. I also have, for this center band, I am using little chunks of wood that are, I think, 2/10 of an inch in thickness. The other thing that you notice in the pin that's going around is I have a veneer piece. And the veneer I used in the majority of those is something that I found from one of those inspiration guys. And this is called vulcanized fiber. It's pretty stiff. It turns like wood. It's available in very bright colors. It's a millimeter. Some of them are a millimeter thick, and some of them are half a millimeter thick. I'll pass these around so you can look at them. I really like this material. The people I bought it from, that I bought those from, quit selling them, but I found an alternate source day before yesterday, and that's on the PowerPoints. So that's the contrasted veneer, and I get that from I've ordered from valleycomposites.com. 40 cents a sheet, I think, something like that. It's not particularly expensive, especially since I use, to make both ends of a pen, I use a strip of that 1 inch wide. I have a paper cutter, the old, that was Debbie's grandfather's paper cutter. It's over 100 years old, it still works great. So just to name the pieces in the sled, the pivot. I'm left-handed. I put my pivot at the top right. It just made sense to me. But when I look at the videos, everybody else puts it at the bottom left. You need a fence. You need a stop block, and I really like those pins because if I want a 33 1/3 degree thing, all I got to do is drill a 1/4 inch hole at that angle. The other thing I'd say is the angle doesn't have to be perfect. I think my 45 is 44.7 or something like that. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it doesn't change from cut to cut. And once you set the stop block, you don't want to move it on a particular end of a pin. So it's really simple. I found that so much of it works great at 45 degrees. I think you can put a piece of wood fence down, put a screw in it, get your digital protractor, set the other end at 40 degrees, put another screw in it, and then you have a 45 only sled. and it'll probably do everything you want. So there's a little map in the corner, green. It has 1, 1, and 2, 2. Lacey wanted to do that as 1, 2, 3, 4, and he suggested that you do it in sequence, but it turns out that as long as you do odd, and even, it doesn't matter what their numbers are. So I mark mine. There's 1, 1, 2, 2. I don't know if you can see it, but there you go. The reason why I mark them on the end is there's a sanding step, and you sand on every side. And if you sand it, it's going to be gone. And the other thing, I learned, you mark on pencil on this, you can't see it. But if you buy one of these little pins from Home Depot, it comes with a white lead, a red lead, and a regular pencil lead, and it's called a tough carbon marking pencil. And it wasn't particularly expensive. It's pretty neat. I used it quite a bit when I am trying to mark things on real dark woods, or if you're trying to sometimes you want a red line instead of a white line or a black line. Anyway, that's a pretty neat little. The other thing I do, you'll see a little bit later, and I sanded it and it's gone. When I cut this blank in half and inserted these contrasting pieces in the middle like a center band, one of the first pins I made, and I got it turned, the two pieces turned, and I lost my grain line. So one of the things that I did was on this one, before I glued it together, was I took that white pencil and put a line on it, and then I knew that was the way I wanted to put it back together. So that works pretty good for that. So on the fence, I put my blank, and in my first cut, I try to get pretty close to the end, but where I can get a complete 45-degree cut across the blank. That's one of 4 cuts. To make that one cut, it takes 30 seconds, and you're done with that. Then you take and you glue the veneer and the contrast wood number 1 on that 45-degree slope, and I usually did it so it overhung on either side of the blank. I used a lot of activator to make sure that it was nice and set. And then I used the bandsaw to cut off the overhanging parts by sliding the blade up. Oh, I use CA glue thick. Lacey uses thin. I've just felt more comfortable with the thick. And Lacey didn't cut the overhanging part with the bandsaw. He sanded it, but that seemed like an awful lot of sanding, because I've got at least 1/8 of an inch or maybe a 1/4 inch overhang that I had to take off. So that's why I did that. But in the end, I put it on my 10-inch disc sander and sand it flat, all 4 sides. Yes, I usually set it on the table and push it down so that this is my gluing table. I have a piece of wax paper on it. I glue it on there and push it down so that it rests on the table. I make the strips a little bit wider so it'll be a little bit proud on the top side, and I'll have to sand that off. Okay, so this slide's talking about what I call the odd numbers. So after you've sanded it and it's nice and square like the original blank was, you rotate that blank 180 degrees and make that one cut. You glue on the veneer and the paduke. You cut off the overhanging portion and you sand it, and that's half of the blank is done. Now you rotate the blank 90 degrees instead of 180 degrees, and now you're on the even side, and you do the same thing. You make a cut, you glue the veneer and the second contrasting color. Maybe you did, I don't know why, I like yellow heart the best, so I always did yellow heart on the odd numbers, and then I used the contrasting purple heart or whatever on the even side. But you glue those two components and cut off the overhang, sand it flush, rotate it 180 degrees so you're on the other two side, and repeat that. And then it's done. And it looks kind of interesting. It doesn't look like the final blank.
So Jim, the wood elements you're talking about
are these little things.
Are they triangles or what are?
Oh, they're squares.
Oh, they're square.
Yeah. The triangle shape comes from the cut, the 45-degree cut that you make on the saw.
Gordon just sent me a question. Wanted to know if you ever tried to use like thin metal, like Coke cans or something like that.
I haven't yet. That's CA is easy. I can get it done, and I can do both ends in an hour. And if I got to do epoxy, then I've got a longer process.
So do you do both ends, 1-1 and 2-2, both ends at the same? Do one end and then the other?
I do one end, and then I do the other end. And the reason for it, I think, will become apparent, because when you get done with the four, cuts on the top, these are what you're cutting off. I've been saving these, and they're pretty bizarre looking. And the top of the blank would be all pointy like that. I might have something like that on the top of it. I put there's 0.2 inch thick maple patches or caps at the end of the blanks. And the reason I do that is when you drill out the center hole for the brass tube, you're drilling right at the intersection of some of those pieces. And I wanted something a little more stable when I started my cut. And that's, so that maple piece is sacrificial. I got a pin from one Christmas from Gordon that had a scalloped design on it, and they left that end cap piece on it, and that's a design choice. I preferred my end of my pin to be that nice point and not have that on there. So after I drill the hole in the tube, I put it on that sander, which is part of my squaring operation, and I sand that all off. So it's gone.
So your brass tube actually.
But the maple end caps can be part of the completed design if you choose to. So the first cut. And that was before I realized I was going to send it off. And I wrote the number 1 on the side of the blank. there's the cut. And then here's the first assembly. And this is yellow heart, like I said, and the white veneer. The vulcanized fiber. And put it on there. Try to get a square on at least two edges. And then put the wood. The veneer is optional. That's just a design choice. You can do that if you want. You can do 2 layers if you wanted. Whatever you wanted. It's not too interesting with on the first one. Second cut. Continue this one. So I'm gluing the 2 elements. You should always do the veneer first, and then the wood piece second. Yeah. And then here's the final cut. Kind of interesting on that one side, you can see the 2 triangle parts showing up. Or the other side, you don't see it yet. So, after all the cuts are done and have glued on all the contrasting pieces, and you've sanded it flush, the last thing you need to do is square off the end of the blank, because it's got all kinds of crazy shapes up there at the top. And the fence, or the jig that I have, the top edge makes a good fence for making that cut. It was square. So I just pull it back, put the blank on the top edge, and then run it through and cut off that blank. So now back to the... So when you look at the end of that, you can see that there's kind of a plus sign in the top where the intersection of the four pieces come together, and that's right where you're going to glue. And that's why I put the maple end caps in there, so I can get my drill hole started. And I used a drill starter, and then followed with a 3/8 inch bit. And I drilled real slow, I mean really slow, through the, you can watch the color of stuff coming off, and when you no longer see the yellow heart and purple heart, or the yellow heart and Paduke, and you're into the rosewood portion, you can go a little bit faster there for a while until you get to the other end.
Are you drilling it on your lathe?
Drilling it on the lathe, yes. I used a pin chuck, a chuck with the pin jaws to hold it, and the drill starter had made lines on it, so I knew where the center was, and used a drill starter to get that hole going. The 3/8 inch bit that I have, it wasn't it wasn't a brad point. It was the other style, so I really wanted to have a good hole there for the start. So here's the holes, and they're pretty well centered on both sides, so it didn't wander too much.
How do you go about making sure that the headstock and the tailstock are in line? Because I've drilled blanks before on my lathe, and then realized afterwards when it split out that they weren't aligned. And so I end up having to take the pointed life center and the drive, and bring them as close as I can together to make sure that that tip is.
Well, I've done that. I put two 60-degree cones and line them up, and I haven't had to make any adjustments. This kit is the jet airplane kit, and they have two sizes of bushings, and they're so close you can barely feel it, but you need to know which end is which. So the large end is going to be down there, and it's going to have, I'm going to do that temporarily, and I'm going to put a line inside there. The one I did for Larry had a little defect on one end in the wood, and I could use that as an indicator. But these pieces are pretty good. So I don't. No, it's. I call it a defect. It's a feature. This was a feature.
They're not planning on coming to other meetings.
Man, I just told you had a hard time setting up, and you haven't let up yet.
This this pen mandrel is is a really nice one. We bought this at Woodcraft, and they're about $50, Debbie, something like that. I think. So you can adjust the length of the mandrel to match your blank. Oh, maybe. This is way. It's an eighth of an inch out, or a 16th of an inch out of line. So, with the way things have gone tonight, we'll see. So my goal is to expose the scallop shape, and not to complete the pin. I didn't bring CA. You're on top. Okay.
Look at this one.
Oh, sorry, we screwed everything up. Go with your strengths.
That's good enough.
That's good. Don't touch it, Jane. Don't touch it.
So, this nice round. This blank was 37.5 degrees. I just wanted to see what the effect of a different angle was. So that's what I wanted to show. All of that. And on with the 37, the yellow heart portions is about the same size. It looks to me like. See, at this point anyway, the Padauk part looks like half the diameter of the pin, and here, I guess it's still half the diameter. It just looks bigger to me. So I think I'll give up there. You guys can go home, and I'll finish it at home, and I'll put it in the video.
So the black line on top of the yellow heart is some of that veneer?
Here, or that's a red. I used red paper veneer in this case.
It just looks black on camera.
Yeah, it's red. Come see.